I came in here before 2000 when I was asked to come down and look at some work on the wood floors here in the nave. And even then, you know, I realized that that somebody was looking after the building. You could tell that it was in good shape. The restoration effort was going to be major. They took all the pews out, so we were going to be exposing some floors that probably hadn't been exposed for many, many years. It's pretty critical when you're dealing with floors as old as these. As best I can determine, these floors are probably original and date back to the 1906 era. Floors well over 100 years old. You just don't see this type of flooring in this kind of condition. They are Longleaf yellow pine, and they are a very, very high grade of flooring. It doesn't get any better than that. The fact that we could do it without any loss of original material is pretty critical when you're dealing with old floors, because every time you sand them, you weaken them significantly. If you don't sand, especially an old pine floor, you've got this aged, this very thin layer of aged wood. I've developed a system to do restoration work on wood floors that doesn't involve sanding. The process, I named it passive refinishing. In the passive refinishing, I use chemicals that are non-toxic, they're biodegradable, they just don't create a hazardous situation. The pews were removed, and of course there was a very, very old finish on the floor. We knew that we had to get it off because you had very noticeable wear patterns where the congregation had moved in and out of the pews over the years. We removed the old finish, we get down to the bare wood, and because we haven't sanded it, you've got that very thin layer of aged pine. We put down 3 applications of a very high quality, high grade waterborne finish on the floors. They brought the pews back in, they set everything up, and you know, church was in church was in session, I guess. At some point in time, you're going to say, okay, we need to come back in and do some refurbishing. The products that we used lend themselves to refurbishing. I won't say easily, especially not with all these pews in place, but you can do it. But what we found when we came in was very typical, exactly what I would expect to find. When you stand and you look down the pew, you could see a lighter, almost chalky-like look in the pathway where the traffic would be, and that's understandable. And then if you looked underneath the pew, it's pristine. A lot of the congregation would come down the main aisle here, and then they would be entering the aisles or the pews from here. So about the first 3 feet, we noticed it was significantly lighter. I can guarantee you we're not looking at raw wood. What we're looking at is the top layer of finish has just worn, and that's that chalky look. The process we're using is called clean and recoat. We go down the pew and we take a cleaning product, and it is formulated to be used on waterborne finishes on wood floors. Floor will dry for 6 to 8 hours easily, and then we come behind that and we do a dry surface prep. So we got the surface clean, now we've got to prep the finish so that when we put the next application of finish on there, it bonds. Now we're ready to very thoroughly vacuum the floor, get up all the dust and debris, and we will start the coatings application. And this is where the fun begins, because when we did the work 20 some odd years ago, there were no pews here. Well, it's 20 years later, and the pews are not going anywhere. So we have to get down and put down finishes, starting from one end and going to the other, and going underneath the pews all the way to the back. And the coating has to be uniformly applied. Once you let it dry, the floor will, all of a sudden, you will be looking, all that chalky look that was there before, poof, it's gone. Now you're looking down at this beautiful, aged yellow pine floor, and you got the color back, you got the protection back. St. Luke's went out of its way to really showcase a lot of, talented gifted artisans. Not only did St. Luke start off with, just as fine a material as could be found, when you're building a church and the people who are investing in it, it's like, no, we're making a statement here. But for people to steward the church, and just move it through time so that it stays as close to its original look. You really need to take your institutional memory and commit it to print, video. You've got to record it, because if you don't, you're leaving it up to future generations to answer questions and go back and dig for stuff that may or may not be there. What I've often thought would be neat is if you were able somehow to have some of the original parishioners walk through the door and say, what do you see that you remember? What looks the same? I'm sure that over the years things have been added, expanded, and that sort of thing. But the more they say, we remember this, we remember that, we remember the family that did this, then that's when your stewardship needs to be done.